give folks a few more minutes, probably till 9:05-ish, maybe a little before we start. And again, for those who are just joining us, good morning. And we're just going to wait until 9:05 to start, just to give folks a chance to join on this Friday morning.
All right, John, it looks like we've got a good group of people going here if you're ready to get started.
Great, thanks, Christine. Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the kickoff meeting for the HB 2021 study on small-scale community-based renewable energy projects. I just want to take the opportunity up front here to thank you all very much for joining us today, and for your time and commitment to serving on the work group for this study. My name is John Cornwell, and I'm a senior energy policy analyst with the department, and I'm the department lead for the study, and I'll also be leading today's meeting. And I'll have some support from our government relations coordinator, Christy Splitt, and Linda Ross. I just want to note for everybody on the call that today's meeting is open to the public, and it is being recorded. So folks who can't join us today can review the meeting. And I'll just now go over our agenda for today. So the purpose of the meeting today is to formally kick off the HB 2021 study on small-scale community-based renewable energy projects. That's a bit of a mouthful to say, especially if I'm going to be saying it pretty frequently. So you may hear me or others referring to the study at times as the small-scale study or the SSREP study. So just fair warning of that. But over the coming months, we'll have ample opportunity to engage in the substantive issues of the study. But the purpose of our meeting today is really to kick off the study by meeting our fellow members of the work group and then reviewing the study objectives and the study framework. So briefly, our agenda this morning, Director Benner will give a few welcome remarks to kick us off in a moment. Then after some housekeeping points on meeting logistics and how the meeting will operate, we'll allow some time to let workgroup members who are present today introduce themselves. That may take a little bit of time, but one of our key goals for the study is really for it to be as participatory and collaborative as possible, which I think, as you all know, can be somewhat challenging sometimes in our virtual settings. So we'd just like to take this opportunity to hear your voices at the outset. Then after introductions, I'll review the key elements of the HB 2021 section outlining the study on small-scale renewable energy projects. And then I'll review the study plan and timeline in a bit more depth. And then lastly, time permitting, we'll do a brief dive into the state of small-scale renewable energy projects in Oregon today, and then some of the topics we'll be discussing over the course of this study, and then we'll have a period for open discussion and public comment. I'll say it in advance that due to the nature of this meeting being a kickoff meeting, it will be a lot of us talking to you today, but in general, our aim is for these meetings and workshops that we engage in to be structured in a way that'll have enable more participation and interactivity. While we'll be talking a lot today, in the future it'll be a lot more of us talking together. Regarding questions or comments as we go through, after each agenda item, there will be a pause for questions, but if you have any questions in the interim, feel free to enter them in the chat or raise your hand and we'll address them as they come in. Now I would like to turn it over to Director Benner for some welcome remarks. Are you there, Janine?
Yes, thanks, John, and hi, everyone. For those of you I haven't met, although I think I know many of the folks on the work group, I'm Janine Benner, Director of the Oregon Department of Energy, and I'll echo John's thanks to both the work group members and members of the public who've joined us this morning for a really important conversation about small scale and community renewables and how they can help support the state's climate and energy goals. And I get the privilege of sharing with you this slide, which has our new mission and what we do, which hopefully is familiar to many of you who've been in conversations with us recently. But we really help Oregonians make informed decisions and maintain a resilient and affordable energy system. And small-scale community renewables are an important part of that energy system. In this study, really, I think hits a lot of those points under what we do as gathering together information and analysis, helping to be that venue for problem solving and advancing these issues to inform regulation and energy programs and activities. So we're really excited about this study, look forward to hearing from all of you today and in future meetings. And I'll just close by saying again, thank you so much for being here. And I think I'm turning it over to Christy.
Yeah, thanks, Jane.
Indeed. So my job today will be to be sort of your hostess in the WebEx platform, monitoring chats and all of those good things today, although many of you know me as our government relations coordinator for the agency. Wanted to start off with just a quick orientation on WebEx, and you should see a lot of the buttons on the screen in front of you, which depending on the size of your screen might be a little bit small, but just wanted to make sure folks know how to raise their hand, because that's a great way to kind of get in on the conversation when the time comes for that. We really do want to hear from you today, so we also want to make sure you know about the chat. So that way, if you have any thoughts while someone's presenting, you can also capture them there. And I'll be monitoring that and make sure to get those out to the group and make sure that they're recorded for posterity in the end. You'll see there's two ways to raise your hand. There's an option if you were to pull down the participants tab and find yourself. You'll also see that the reactions tab with the little smiley face and the plus sign at the bottom is an option. And then we also just want you to know you can turn your camera on and off and mute yourself and unmute yourself also at the bottom. So if you have any technical issues with WebEx today, you can chat Linda Ross. You can just pull down on the chat to everyone, it says normally, but you can pull down and find Linda and let her know. You can also just ping me. You could also just put it in the chat and we'll find you and figure out if we can help, or you can just speak out and we'll figure out how to help you if that's all not working. So I just want to make WebEx a platform that you're familiar with, and at that we can move on to the next slide. And then how this meeting will be facilitated, the panelists, the people who can mute and unmute themselves sort of at any point, are the people who are appointed to the small scale renewable energy projects study work group members, so members only, and then some ODO staff are also panelists. And then there's also, I've noticed, about 10 people, and a lot of really awesome people, by the way, that are here watching today. And so if you want to speak up at any point, we will have public comment period reserved, although you're also welcome to chat and get in touch with me at any point if you need to. And then also we just want to share, several of us attended a statewide equity training probably about 2 months ago, and there was a set of community agreements that we all really kind of latched onto, with a basic sort of bottom line of that our conversations today should be designed to foster inclusive and respectful communications between us in order to have a meeting that goes well and people feel good about being a part of. Just really short things like being present, being respectful, having the attitude of a learner, being flexible when technology doesn't go our way. That's something we work at every day at the Oregon Department of Energy, and I'm sure you do too in this often virtual setting we live in. And then as a reminder, if you need something, just feel free to reach out to me or to Linda Ross in the chat, and we'll be happy to help you out. And the next slide, please. We're going to go into introducing the work group members like we talked about today. And when you look at this list, you'll see it's a really big list. The legislature gave us direction of who should sit and be part of these conversations, and they didn't limit the number in a particular way. And so we wanted to get the right people in the room or virtual room in this case. So it's a pretty big group. So as we go through introductions, I hope you'll consider being extremely concise in your introduction. And I'll do my best to give an example, but my example would probably be smaller than small scale community-based renewable energy projects often are. So just bear with me. But my name's Christy Splitt. I'm the Government Relations Director for the Oregon Department of Energy. And when I think about my favorite small scale community-based renewable energy project, I always envision a Coos Bay Fire Department that has solar panels on the roof because it provides resilience benefits and it's in a community that I really care a lot about. So I will leave it at that. And then I think we can just, to the extent possible, I will just call on the people alphabetically from this list to make things go a little bit smoothly. You can just come right out, turn your camera on if you know you're next and go, and that'd be awesome too. And I haven't checked to make sure that, to see who precisely is on right now. So hopefully we won't have too many awkward moments where I call on someone and they're not there. I'll try to keep tabs on that. But with that, I hope Allie is okay with being in the hot seat and being first up from Rogue Climate.
Hi, good morning. Can you all hear me?
We can.
Great. I have to keep my video off because my Wi-Fi is a little rough at my house. Hi, everyone. I'm Allie Rosenbluth. I am the campaigns director at Rogue Climate, based in our Rogue Valley office, but we also have an office in Coos Bay. One of my favorite small-scale renewable projects, actually not one that we've worked on, but that Lake County Resources Initiative worked on at the 4-H the 4-H stables there, where they have solar set up with the pigs. So it's pretty cute and just what we're looking for future of small scale renewables.
Love it. Thanks, Allie. Angela.
Hi everybody, Angela Crowley-Cook. I'm the Executive Director of OSIA, the Oregon Solar Plus Storage Industries Association. One of the problems of having an A name going early. So I think I'll say one of my favorite projects is the Solarize Community Solar Project that's going on in the Ashland, Rogue Valley area, Rogue Solarize. And I love it because it's totally community owned and community-led. I also love it because it's really demonstrating the challenges of building community solar. And we're learning a lot from that project, and hopefully they're paving the way for better things in community solar. Thanks.
Thanks so much. I don't see Bob here, so I think that'll bring up Dan next. And I feel like Dan and WebEx don't get along, so let's see what happens. All right, Dan's off mute, but I think he sometimes has trouble. So I'll see if he can put something in the chat and share it out with everyone if that works. And hopefully we can figure this out at some point. Sorry, Dan. Next up is going to be Diane.
Everybody, Diane Hankels. I've got my video going, I think, but I can't see myself. So,
Gotcha.
Diane, thank you. Diane Hankels, good morning. Happy Friday. I am the lead counsel in Oregon for small business utility advocates, representing the interests of the small businesses in Oregon in energy regulatory proceedings, basically. I do have a favorite community energy project, and that is sort of a call it a project assessment effort. It was one that was started a long time ago in Lincoln County, where the county undertook, with help of Energy Trust and some others, to do a wind energy feasibility study and have put up an anemometer, gather some data. That's where I know of it now. So
thank you so much. That's great.
Yep.
Thanks for sharing.
Thank you.
I don't think Dave Moldal is on, but if Dave, if you are, just feel free to speak out. Next up will be Eric.
Hi, yeah, my name's Eric Anderson. I work with Pacificor as the strategic manager for renewable energy. Mostly my team manages the voluntary renewables programs like Blue Sky and community green tariffs as they are developed over the next year, and community solar. So work in a lot of these same spaces. I think the one project that I really like that I had a portion of was a project in Wallowa, right at the base of Wallowa Lake, where they put in a device to capture the energy from a pressure reduction valve. So rather than just wasting the energy and turning it into heat, it's actually turned into electricity and used to power some facilities. So I really like projects where we're just not wasting energy and really figuring out how to creatively use it. So that's one of my favorite projects recently.
Thank you so much for sharing, Eric. Next up, we have James Valdez.
Hi, everybody. Great to be here. James Valdez, he, him pronouns, and I'm the Organizational Development and Policy Manager for the Portland Clean Energy Fund, which is housed within the City of Portland's Bureau of Planning and Sustainability, where I work. Coming to you here from North Portland, and it is so hard to come up with a favorite, but I guess I'll go maybe back about a decade to a project that was, I think, really inspirational to me, that I saw in Germany, outside of Freiburg, which was a kind of solar and wind cooperatively owned project on a small farm that was on a building. Part of the solar array was on a building that was over 300 years old. So it can be done in all scales and all over the world. And I'm glad that we can keep building great ideas and projects here in Oregon too.
Great. Thank you so much, James. I love the aspiration from another place. Jimmy.
Good morning, everyone. Pleasure to be here. My name is Jimmy Lindsay, and I'm a manager of our renewable initiatives team at Portland General Electric. And my team's responsible for a number of things, including a lot of our renewable procurement and also contracting with smaller scale renewable projects throughout the state. The project that I'd highlight for the group, and one that I think is a good example of what can be done with community scale renewable energy, is the Beaverton Public Safety Center. It's a facility that houses the Beaverton police department, but also is sort of supplemented with solar and storage equipment that allows the project to operate independently to provide some resiliency benefits for the community in the event of a grid-wide outage. And I think it's pretty cool. So great to meet everyone and great to be here. Looking forward to it.
Thank you so much. Next up, John.
Good morning. Good morning. I'm sorry, I bobbled a little bit getting on the screen. I'm John Jennings. I'm the Community Services Specialist for the Department of Land Conservation Development. I've been our lead on several renewable energy rulemaking efforts, and also just thinking through this subject in general. I guess I don't know if I have a favorite small scale project. If I did, I think it would be there's a hydro, I guess it'd be micro hydro or small hydro project that was constructed by the Central Oregon Irrigation District several years ago on, I think it's their Pilot Butte Canal between Bend and Redmond, and just it really seems to fit right there quite well, and helps to provide some power and also augment the cost of delivery of that water. And as a customer of COID, I appreciate that. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Next up, Julie.
Hi, good morning, everybody. I'm Julie Peacock. I'm the Oregon liaison at the Bonneville Power Administration. I might broaden mine to say my favorite community program is the one I first learned about when I came to Oregon, which is the Ashland Solar Pioneers program. So good to see everybody.
Great, thank you so much. Nice to see you too. Next up is Keisha.
Hey, good morning. This is Keisha Brockman. I'm with the Oregon Public Utility Commission. I am about to change my role from utility analyst to policy advisor, but my background is largely in renewable energy, and more recently that includes storage as well. I think similar to John Jennings, I'm actually pretty excited about the irrigation modernization effort that is going on throughout Oregon, including that Central Oregon Water District. I think the fact that they work with the irrigation district means that they're bringing together a community of people to support this project, and they're providing both water efficiency and energy generation. And I think that's great. Thanks.
Thank you. Tom?
Yeah, my name's Tom McBartlett. I'm the director of the electric utility for the city of Ashland. Let's say one of my favorite small scale renewable projects is the fact that we have about 12,500 meters and we have over 400 rooftop installations in our service territory, which has led us to be able to offer virtual net metering for those who don't have good solar access, to partner with friends, neighbors that maybe have better solar access and take advantage of that and still get the rewards from that.
Great, thank you so much for sharing that example. We all hear a lot. There's already been how many Ashland examples this morning? All right, next up, let's see. Kyle, I think we don't have on the line yet, so we'll go to Mark. Oh, Mark Patterson, because we've got a few. We've got 3 on the line, actually.
Hello, this is Mark Patterson with Idaho Power. I'm in the T&D Strategies group, and one of my favorite small-scale renewable projects. I like it was installed about 10 years ago. What I like about it, it's a wind project. They took some older wind turbines out of California that had been mothballed, and they put them to use in this new place in Oregon where they refurbished them some, put some new blades on. And so rather than just have these go into the trash bin, we'll say, they were able to put them back, and they've been running well now. So it's sort of inspirational for me.
Great, thank you so much. And then I'll go to Mark Nystrom, and then I'm going to break the order to keep alphabetical. We'll go with Representative Owens after Mark Nystrom. Ooh. Mark Nystrom, you actually sound a little bit like a Charlie Brown parent. That's fascinating. So we might I'm gonna have, maybe we'll circle back to you. Oh, you have 1 second. Okay. We'll come back to you in a second. Okay, Representative Owens, thank you so much for being here today.
Yeah, thanks, Christy, and thank everyone. Mark Owens, House District 60 state rep, which is now, I think, 37% of the southeast corner of the state. Look forward to conversations and learning. So I'm going to take the easy way out on your question. I'm going to say whatever small scale renewable that we can put forward in the future is my favorite project.
Love it. Solutions oriented. All right, I'm going to keep an eye out for Mark Nystrom to turn his camera back on when he's ready, but we'll move on to Mike MacArthur.
Morning. Mike MacArthur, the Executive Director of the Community Renewable Energy Association. We've been advocating for small-scale, locally owned projects for over 20 years. We learned about this opportunity through the Odo Wind Working Group back in the early 2000s. And we learned that it was possible through the Public Utility Regulatory Policy Act for farmers to be able to loan their own wind farms. And my favorite example of that is one that exists here in Sherman County called Patu, 9 megawatt, owned by a family here from Sherman County, multi-generational family here on their wheat field, and they're selling their power. So I think that's a good example of what we hope to achieve more of.
Great, thank you. Next up, Natalie.
Hi, everyone. My name is Natalie Rogers. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm the Climate and Natural Resource Manager for the City of Milwaukee. I'm really excited to be here. I am tasked with implementing the Climate Action Plan for the City of Milwaukee, which includes a 2030 goal to be carbon-free generation 100% for our community. So really excited to be here. I would say my favorite small-scale community-based renewable energy project is actually in Milwaukee. We do have the largest solar array on multifamily housing, at least of 2019, and at our Waverly Greens apartments. And I think my favorite thing about it is that they also have high tree canopy on the site. So it kind of balances our tree canopy goals as well as our renewable energy goals. So very excited to be here today.
Great, thank you so much. Nikita?
Hey y'all, can you hear me okay?
Sure can.
Okay, cool. My name is Nikita Daryanani. I use she, her pronouns. I'm the Climate and Energy Policy Manager at the Coalition of Communities of Color, or CCC. A project I recently learned about and one that I think is pretty cool is here in Portland. In the Cully neighborhood, includes solar panels and I think storage too on St. Charles Church. So I think that's really exciting. And I'm looking forward to being here and learning. Thanks.
Great, thank you so much. Let's see, I want to test out Mark and see if Mark Nystrom is
it working now?
Yes, you sound great. Thank you.
This is not the first time this has happened to me on WebEx. Hi, everyone. I'm Mark Nystrom. I work for Lane County. I'm the climate strategist here. We get to work with 7 utilities in Lane County, so I don't want to leave anyone out, but there's a couple that I'm really impressed, a couple of community solar programs that I'm really impressed with. Central Lincoln PUD has a great one out on Florence, and Emerald People's Utility District has a great one down in, I think it's between Crestwell and Cottage Grove, with working with St. Vincent de Paul's. So happy to have both of those here in our county.
Great, thank you so much. And then we are at Oriana.
Hello, my name is Oriana Maniera. I use she, her pronouns. I'm the Energy, Climate, and Transportation Manager at Verde, which is a community-based organization that does some project-based work in the Cully neighborhood in addition to statewide policy advocacy. Thanks, Nikita, for the shout out to one of our projects, the St. Charles Church project. I think like Representative Owens, I'm excited about future projects as well. And in particular, we're developing 3 different community solar projects in the Cully neighborhood, all of which we're hoping to achieve cooperative ownership so that the community who are subscribers and members of the community not only get the bill savings benefits from the projects, but also are able to build wealth through the dividends associated with the project finance and benefits.
Great, thank you so much. Rain Feast?
Hi everyone, my name's Rain Feast, Gino Viatoro, and I'm with Blue Green Alliance. The pronouns, and my favorite project would have to be the rooftop solar at the IBW 48 Union Hall. So I think for me at Blue Green Alliance, we work with labor environmental groups. I personally would love to see net zero buildings or solar on rooftops on our Union Apprenticeship Hall. Highlight those.
Great. Thank you. And then Ryan.
Hi, Ryan Davies, the Director of Customer and Energy Services for Central Electric Cooperative, not-for-profit electric cooperative in Central Oregon, serving approximately 29,000 members. And I would say there's a few favorites. The micro hydro comes to mind for Three Sisters Irrigation District and then the other that's pretty neat, we did in 2016 our community-based solar project, which is 133 members bought into. And I think the reason why I appreciated it was the accessibility and the opportunity to provide quarter panel purchase options all the way up to our largest, which is 24 panels one member has. So it was a really neat project from an accessibility standpoint.
Great. Thank you so much. I was wondering if we might just like perfectly nail it because Senator Dumbro was coming about a half hour late that he'd be here when we got to him, but he's not yet. So we'll go to, we already did Tom. I actually think that the others that we have left on here haven't had a chance to join us yet this morning. I do want to give Dan Orzak a chance to see if his mic is working. We think it might be.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
We sure can.
Okay. So I finally figured out the microphone on WebEx, but I don't have the video working yet. We'll get there. So I apologize for that. I'm Dan Orzak. I'm the general manager of the Oregon Clean Power Cooperative. We do community financed renewables in Oregon. I would love to say we've done about 24 community finance projects in the state, solar and solar plus storage projects, and I'd love to say that they are all my favorites. But I'd like to give a shout out to the low-income housing solar project that Ryan Sheehy and Fleet Development has done I believe in Oregon Trail Electric Co-op territory. So I call that community solar, but of course it's in a COU territory, so not in what we think of as a community solar program. But Fleet battled entropy in several federal government agencies to make that project work, and I think has really done pioneering work with solar and low-income housing.
Great. And then I think we also have, let's see, Dave Moldal should now be able to participate.
Thanks, Chrissy. Dave Moldal, the Senior Program Manager with Energy Trust of Oregon, managed the custom renewable energy generation projects, largely hydropower and biopower. There are so many fantastic projects to point to, but certainly want to underscore the amazing fleet of cogeneration projects at the state's water resource recovery facilities that are generating about 50,000 megawatt hours of combined heat and power, electricity, renewable energy power for municipalities, as well as the incredible potential for in-conduit hydropower projects that have been identified through the irrigation modernization program. Got a lot of opportunities before us. Great to be on this group.
Thank you so much. And then last but not least, we have Mike from Oregon Cub is joining us today. Bob Jenks is filling a seat until staff, I think, is hired that he wants to fill the position, right, Mike? And you're here today for Cub?
That's correct. Thanks, Christy. We do have a couple job postings open, so dealing with some turnover internally, but I'm here today filling in for Bob for the moment. My name is Mike Getz. I'm the General Counsel of the Oregon Citizens Utility Board. We are the advocate for the residential ratepayers of the investor-owned utilities throughout the state. And one small-scale renewable project that I had the pleasure of visiting a few years ago is out in Lake County in Lakeview, Oregon. where the hospital and a few of the schools have been retrofitted for geothermal heating. There's a lot of like hot springs and kind of geothermal activity in that region, and they've been able to harness some of it. And it was a cool project to check out.
Great. Well, thank you so much for sharing that. Are there any members of the study work group that I missed? You can raise your hand or go off mute, and I'll also look at the attendees list to see. Every once in a while, it's hard to log in as an attendee. So if I missed anybody there, you can raise your hand and I can bring you off mute.
This is Steve Uffelman. I signed in late. Sorry, I had trouble getting in.
No worries. Thank you so much for joining us. We're sharing our best example of a small scale renewable energy project. And from what I hear, you've been responsible or helpful with a lot of them. Do you want to give an example for us?
Well, there are a couple of things that are going on. I mean, I'm impressed specifically with what's happened up in Hood River with their small hydro project with a microgrid system in place to take care of the emergency facilities in the hospital, et cetera, which is a 24/7 operation, so they don't have to worry about whether the sun's up or the wind's blowing. The city of Prineville is in the process of developing what we call PREP, which is Prineville Renewable Energy Program, which is a 20 megawatt biomass generator that we hope to have under construction during this next year. So it will be a substantial undertaking for us, and it will generate a lot of power, and it will be a base load operation, so 24/7 operation instead of solar. So.
Wonderful. Well, I'm so glad you can join us and bring your expertise, and thanks for sharing that example. And thanks so much for really all the great inspiration for the conversation that we have ahead. It seems like we have a lot of fans of projects like this, a lot of examples. So let's go ahead and I think go back to John, who will take it from here with the next slide.
Well, thank you all very much for the introductions, and it's really great to hear about you and your favorite projects. I just got kicked off WebEx. I hope that it doesn't happen again while I'm going. But
I'm here if it happens.
That's the fun of the times we live in, I guess. Just for the record, I guess I'll state my favorite, and it's kind of by way of explaining my accent in a sense. My favorite small-scale project is actually in Australia, which is where I'm originally from, and it's the Crookwell Wind Facility, which is the first grid-connected wind project in Australia, just a couple of miles outside the town where my mum lives. And it was a really important project because it helped establish in Australia how community engagement happens in renewable energy development, and a lot of the lessons learned from that, which my mum was heavily involved with, and I a little bit as well, really helped set the stage for how communities are engaged in Australia on renewable energy development. Just one quick note too, my mum actually grew up in the Dow's, so that's another my connection, I guess, to the northwest is also through that. So, but I'm just now going to give a quick overview of the study on small-scale renewable energy projects statutory language and objectives. As I'm sure you all know, earlier this year, House Bill 2021 passed, and that places Oregon on one of the most aggressive power sector decarbonisation pathways in the nation, requiring, among other things, Oregon's investor-owned utilities and electric service suppliers to eliminate greenhouse gas emissions associated with serving Oregon retail electricity consumers by 2040. And along with those targets, one of the intents of the legislation was, as paraphrasing what Representative Pam Marsh noted on the House floor, is one of the intents of HB 2021 was to set a clear course toward local renewable energy development that can provide jobs and boost community economic vitality. a recognition that small-scale and community-based renewable energy projects can serve as a critical energy component of Oregon's economic recovery and resilience efforts in response to the pandemic and wildfires, winter storms, drought, and other issues that we've faced recently. And to that end, there are four key elements of HB 2021 that relate to small-scale and community-based renewable energy projects. The first is the clean energy planning process that's defined in a statute that requires investor-owned utilities and electric service suppliers to conduct risk-based evaluations of resilience opportunities and costs and opportunities of offsetting energy generated from fossil fuels with community renewable projects. And to do this with advice from community benefits and impacts advisory groups that represent interests of customers or other affected entities within the electric company's various service territories, importantly, including representatives of environmental justice communities, low-income ratepayers, and others. Second, the HB 2021 increases the requirement established in SB 838 and SB 1547 for Oregon's investor-owned utilities to acquire a proportion of their aggregate electricity capacity from small-scale based renewable projects from 8 to 10%. Third, the bill established the $50 million Community Renewable Energy Projects Grant Fund that's being administered by ODO and to support planning and development of community renewable energy and resilience projects that are 20 megawatts or less in size. And then last, but certainly not least for us, HB 2021 instructed ODO to conduct this study of small-scale and community-based renewable energy projects. The statutory objective of the study is for ODO to convene a work group to examine opportunities to encourage development of small-scale and community-based renewable energy projects in this state that contribute to economic development and local energy resilience. The outcome or product of the study will be an ODO report to the legislature describing the current status and trends for small-scale renewable energy development, and though that report will be based on the findings of the work that this group does. There are a couple of important things for us to note in that. One is that the statute specifically lays out that the work group is to examine and study these opportunities to encourage development of small-scale and community-based renewable energy projects. There I go. The mouthful is getting to me there. As such, we're really trying to plan the way this study is done so that it's really a collaborative effort between the work group and ODO staff, and is driven by the work group. It's also important for us to note and acknowledge that there are other activities in progress at the moment related to aspects of small-scale and community-based renewable energy projects. For example, rulemaking for implementation of House Bill 2021, efforts around the small-scale renewable energy targets, and others. To be clear that while the results of our study may reflect on or inform some of those activities, this study itself is not a rulemaking process, and it's really a broader effort to help identify and examine potential opportunities, barriers, benefits, and costs related to encouraging development of small-scale and community-based renewable energy projects in Oregon. The final report to the legislature is due on September 30th of 2022. So one question that I guess may immediately come to mind is what do we mean by a small-scale and community-based renewable energy project? So the working definition that we're proposing for this work group draws on existing statutory definitions and language in HB 2021. ORS 469A.210, which establishes the small-scale and community-based renewable energy targets, defines small-scale renewable energy projects as projects with a generating capacity of 20 megawatts or less that generate electricity utilizing a type of energy that qualifies for the Oregon RPS. So that would be, for example, wind, solar, geothermal, biomass and biogas, marine hydrokinetic, some certain hydropower, and then green hydrogen. Is also potentially a qualifying resource. This is also the definition of projects qualifying for the Community Renewable Energy Fund in HB 2021, which has a definition of the small scale and community-based targets as projects less than 20 megawatts, or 20 megawatts or less, I should say. Then in HB 2021, in the language establishing this study, the language states that the study will examine projects in this state. So based on that, we're using the following definition that small scale and community-based renewable energy projects are those projects with a generating capacity of 20 megawatts or less that generate electricity utilizing a type of energy that qualifies for the Oregon RPS and is located in a community in Oregon. Clearly, it's a very broad definition that will cover a wide range of project types, sizes, applications, ranging from distributed behind the meter projects to larger in front of the meter projects, like PERPA qualifying facilities, for example. So as we progress through the study, we'll be looking at the different topics with sort of stratifying or with the perspective from these different types of projects that could fit in this definition. In addition to the overall objective of examining opportunities to encourage development of small-scale and community-based renewable energy projects, the HB 2021 also established a specific set of subtopics for the work group to examine. And those are summarized here. So they include potential barriers and opportunities to project development in both investor-owned and consumer-owned utility service territory. Those include things like land use, local and state utility regulations, transmission capacity, contracts or obligations under the Public Utility Regulatory Policies Act, and project implementation or project costs and financing. The bill also directs the work group to study potential economic benefits of small-scale renewable energy projects, as well as potential contributions of projects to local energy resiliency. The bill also directs the work group to study potential access and ownership opportunities for low-income communities or Black, Indigenous, people of color, communities of Black, Indigenous and people of color, tribal communities, rural and coastal communities, and other communities with limited infrastructure, as well as opportunities for diverse models of ownership by local governments, non-profit organizations, or cooperatives of community members. The bill also directs the group to study potential rate impacts of projects, and then potentially develop legislative recommendations that could encourage development of small-scale and community-based renewable energy projects in Oregon.
John, we got a question in the chat that I think was related to the last slide. There was curiosity about the basis for the RPS qualification requirement. Why the decision was made or the direction was given to stick with that definition, I guess.
Yeah, so again, it goes back to the definition that is in statute for the small scale and community based renewable energy targets, which defines projects as by size and then by resource type, and the resources are resources that qualify for the RPS. So we're really drawing on the existing definitions in statute to help us define what a small scale and community based renewable energy project is. I hope that answers the question.
I imagine so. We did get a question in follow-up that whether or not storage would be included.
So we will certainly be. I think storage would certainly be included. That's I think a fundamental component that's emerging for many of these projects to have to accrue sort of these resilience benefits is when renewable projects are coupled with storage. So we'll certainly be looking at projects that both have renewable resources and storage capability.
All right, thank you so much, and thanks, Mark and Jessica, for the questions.
Great. So lastly, the small-scale renewable energy project statute defines the studies workgroup members. We've gone through our introductions already, so I won't belabor this slide too much. We'll go through the list. But the purpose and intent here is to really ensure that the study brings together and represents perspectives from a broad range of energy stakeholders. But now I'll just take a pause here to see if there are any questions, any additional questions or comments about the study objectives, understanding that over the next few slides, I'm going to go more in depth about how we aim to operationalize the study or go into the logistics of how the study will work. But if there are any questions about the overall summary or statutory objectives. Okay.
I don't see any hands up or anybody coming off mute.
I actually have a question.
There you go.
Hi. Would there be any consideration, I don't know if this is just going to be further in the study, but consideration to renewables in regards to like carbon-free generation versus maybe carbon-emitting renewables such as biomass, biogas, et cetera?
So I think the definition that we're working with would include projects drawing on biomass or biogas. and for us to consider in the study as we're looking at the these opportunities to encourage development of projects that can have economic and resilience benefits. So yes, that would be those projects would be within our under our umbrella of projects that we will study, and depending on the desire of the work group, we could certainly see discussion around the definitions of clean and energy, etc.
Thank you.
Did that answer your question?
Yes, thank you. Great. And then Councillor Uffelman has his hand up.
Yeah, my question, and in regard to the question that was just asked by Natalie, many of the projects that we're looking at, or some of the projects we're looking at, have multiple side benefits, such as removal of juniper, which would enhance the availability of ground and surface water, as well as biomass reduction in the forest for healthy forest initiatives. There are so many side benefits to some of the projects that we've been looking at. How can that be incorporated into the project or into the consideration of a project for the benefit in addition to the electricity generation?
Sorry, was that a comment or a question? You were asking if that's something that we would consider in this study?
I would raise that as a question of, will we consider that in the study?
Yes. So the work group will be looking at opportunities and sort of non-energy benefits of small-scale and community-based renewable energy projects, which certainly can include environmental benefits or other community benefits.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. All right, anything else before we move on to sort of the nuts and bolts of the study? How it'll actually work? In other words, what you all get to do for the next 8-9 months or so? All right, I don't see anybody else coming off or any hands up.
Great. So now I'll spend the next few slides, as I said, going over the study plan, and make the point that in addition to the legislative objectives, ODO also has some objectives for the execution or operationalization of the study. And one of our goals is to really respect the legislative intent that the work group study and examine the small-scale renewable energy project topics, and therefore we want to ensure that the study is really a collaborative effort between ODO staff and the work group, and that the work group has a key role in determining and driving the research and investigations of the study. And we also recognize that workgroup members come to this study with differing perspectives and backgrounds, and that individuals in the workgroup have different learning styles and different preferred methods of contributing to this effort. And so again, we're really aiming to ensure that this study is it's a collaborative effort, is conducted transparently, is accessible to all workgroup members, and that the study ultimately the products fairly reflect the perspective of all participants. So to that end, we've planned the study in a way to try and encourage collaboration and offer multiple avenues for engagement and participation of members. So the core activities of the work group will be a set of 4 topic area workshops. The workshops are reflective of the topics that are discussed in the previous set of slides, the specific topic areas that HB 2021 outlined for us to investigate. And so those will take place in March through June of 2022. There are a couple of reasons why we're starting in March. One is a number of people many people on the work group will be involved in the legislative session. So we want to wait until after the legislative session before we start taking your time. And then second, it gives ODO staff and the work group time to conduct some preliminary research and analysis to help answer some of the questions posed by the study, and develop materials for the workshops. At the moment, ODO hasn't we haven't set what the format of these workshops will be. We want that to be an effort between staff and work group members. But some examples of what that might entail would be potentially inviting experts on different topics to conduct a panel review of ODO research and analysis, and then breakouts and discussion among work group members and other activities. Each of these workshops will ultimately result in a topic area summary that will inform ODO's final legislative report. And then at this stage, we're anticipating that these will be virtual meetings throughout the study, but we can revisit that as a group if we want in the future, if there's a desire to have one or more meetings in person. So again, establishing a timeline here, that these workshops will occur in March, April, May, and June of next year. So the work that the work group will do in those workshops will be informed by initially by a questionnaire that ODO will send to members of the work group in the coming weeks, and that questionnaire will be aimed at eliciting key research topics of interest, key research questions, and input on research methods to answer questions from work group members. We will take the results of that questionnaire and use those to help clarify and define the research areas of interest for each of the workshops, and those workshops then will be planned by ODO staff and some workshop planning committees, which will be made up of a subgroup of the full work group. So that questionnaire will again we'll be sending that out to work group members in the week of the 13th of December, and hope to have the responses back by the end of the year. Now, as I mentioned, with regards to workshop planning, we want to ensure that the work group has input into the planning of research and analysis, and to support the workshops. So we'll be forming workshop planning committees made up of a subset of members from the work group. And along with the questionnaire, we'll send a survey to work group members asking for your preferences of which workshop you would like to be involved with. We'll ask members to contribute to one workshop planning group, but those planning committee meetings or activities will be open to all work group members, and any materials that are developed by the planning groups will be available for the full work group to comment on. And so we're at the moment we're planning on 2 planning committee meetings that will take place before the workshops. The first meeting would be to synthesize the results of the questionnaire and develop research plans for the workshop materials. And then the second meeting will be to review the research and analysis work done by Odo staff, and then plan the workshop activities. So those we anticipate that those first planning meetings will take place in January of 2022. And then the second planning meetings will take place a month before each of the workshops. In the interim, between the planning meeting 1 and planning meeting 2, Odo staff will conduct research and analysis based on the questionnaire and the framing from the first planning meeting, and develop draft background briefs and workshop materials. So that will take place between, again, planning meeting 1 and planning meeting 2. So with regards to reporting, as I mentioned, each of the workshops will result in a workshop summary that will form the backbone and inform the final Odo report to the legislature, and we anticipate that the draft report to the legislature will be available in late July for work group review, then a second draft and review in August for final report submittal at the end of September. So just a quick recap then, the sort of timeline and deliverables for the project. Again, the week of December 13th, we will be sending the work group a document package that will include the questionnaire that I mentioned. Then we will engage in the workshop planning meetings in January. Odo staff will then engage in research and analysis to inform the workshops. There'll be draft workshop materials available for the planning committees to review 1 month before each of the workshops. And then between the second planning committee meeting and the workshop itself, Odo staff will work on the final materials for finalizing the materials for the workshops. Then we'll produce the workshop summary reports, which will then lead into the draft legislative report. So what we're asking of you as work group members, so there's 4 key activities. So the first is to complete our research topic survey or questionnaire, which we'll be sending out in the next couple of weeks. The second will ask workgroup members to participate in one workshop planning committee, which we're planning on having 2 meetings, as I mentioned. If those committees decide that they would like to have more planning is needed, we can certainly increase that number of meetings. We'll ask members to attend and participate in the 4 workshops, and then provide feedback on all of the deliverables. And so the next steps, again, we'll be sending out a document package the week of December 13th. That will include a workgroup charter, which will essentially outline the process that we'll go through, and method, how we will be communicating with the workgroup, code of conduct for workshops, etc. We'll send out a planning committee preference survey for you, the members, to select which of the planning committees you would like to be involved in. There'll be a topic area background brief, and then the research topics questionnaire, and that will be we'll be asking workgroup members to complete that questionnaire by December 31st, so that we can integrate those responses into the workshop planning, which will take place in January. So I'll pause there and see if there are any questions or comments related to the framework that we're proposing.
Acacia has her hand up, and we'll start there, and then we'll go to Angela and Councillor Uffelman. I'll go up the list from there.
Hey, John, thanks. So my only comment is that the second part of the questionnaire related to the research topics, I think it may be, I'm probably not alone in that sort of the first 3 weeks of December are completely booked out for me. And so maybe that research topics questionnaire could be broken out so that the near term we focus on the first topic for the first workshop, and that the additional ones, maybe you could accept responses to those questions later in January.
That's a good suggestion, Keisha. And yeah, certainly we're getting started in December, which is a busy time for everybody. So I think, as you can see from that plan, we're certainly sequencing these purposefully, and so we can certainly extend, I think, the deadline for the later topics. So as you suggest, so yeah, that's a good suggestion.
Great, thank you. And then we'll go to Angela, and then I guess Mike now. I don't see Councillor Uffelman with his hand up anymore, so Angela.
My question's along a similar vein. I would love more than a week to fill out that survey because I'd like to get my members' input, and a week is a pretty tight timeline. So if we can have just a bit longer, that'd be helpful.
Sure, and we can certainly extend those timelines. There's sort of a tentative scheduling is what we were looking at there. Note that there were two elements there. One is a preference survey, which will just be a simple request for you to list your preferences of the 4 workshops. The research topics questionnaire, we were tentatively hoping to have back by the end of this year, by the 31st of December, but we can certainly extend that into January.
Okay, thanks for clarifying.
And then I don't see any other of those work group.
I have a question, Christy, if you don't mind.
Okay. Oh, Mike, sorry, I meant to call you. Sorry.
It's fairly simple. Will there be some sort of repository or place where information that's collected, like studies and reports, could be placed in one on one part of a site, or will there be a site for this committee where we can, if we run across a study we think is relevant, we could send it in to you, John, and it would be logged into this repository?
Absolutely. That's an excellent point, Mike, and something that I should have addressed. So the small scale study has a website housed in the Odo website, and that will be a repository for all of the information and materials developed by the work group. We'll also have a comment portal, which will allow work group members to provide comments on materials. And then you make a good point. We'll certainly, any studies that are suggested by members of the work group for us to review, we can add to the website. But we may we also have capability to have sort of a repository that's not on necessarily on that website to store other materials, research materials that could be accessed by the work group and planning members.
Great.
Did that answer your question?
Okay, Mike's giving a thumbs up sign. So I want to note that we have a question from someone that's here as an attendee, and then another question from someone that's on the panel. But I also just want to break in, Senator Dembro joined us, and I'd love it if he could come on camera and just say, hey, so folks know he's here. And I'll work on getting him caught up. He just got out of an intense meeting on an important topic, so thanks for that. Are you able to come off camera and say hello, Senator?
Can you see me? I can see myself. Can you hear me?
We can definitely hear you. I can't see you, but maybe other people can. Oh, now I can see you. Great. Hi.
Okay, great. Okay, very happy to be here. Sorry, I was caught up in this other meeting that I was running. I'm Michael Dembro, and I'm the senator for District 23. That's much of Northeast and Southeast Portland. And I also serve on the Energy and Environment Committee in the Senate. I used to chair the Environment and Natural Resources Committee, but now I'm in what's turning out to be the hellhole of education and the challenges that we're facing in this state right now. But I'm very, very pleased to be part of this group. I see a number of friends who are also part of this group, and I hear all the time from constituents about the need for us to move forward on small-scale renewables, and really happy to be part of this work. So my apologies again, and thank you.
Thank you for being there. And thanks for the work you're doing over there. Area PTA president. So, you know, I care a lot about this stuff too. So, and I know it's tough. Let's see. So we have questions from Jimmy. And then after Jimmy, if it's okay, we'll go to Kathy Moyd, who's joined us as an attendee today. So starting with Jimmy.
Thanks, Christy. My question sort of relates to the workshops and some of the study aims. And I was just sort of curious if you foresaw that this study speaking to, which type of small scale renewable projects sort of best deliver on the aims of the legislation as it relates to sort of local economic development and resiliency. Was kind of wondering where you sort of foresaw those potential topics mapping out into the workshops you laid out.
It's a great question. So I'll just move back to this slide on the topic areas for the workshops and the issues you were raising around where the work group would be investigating sort of the various benefits or opportunities for projects and identifying identifying those opportunities would take place across some of the, you could see them, each of these having some discussion of those topics, but in particular looking at these sort of the barriers. Workshop 1, the barriers and opportunities for small-scale renewable projects, and Workshop 3, the benefits and impacts, great impacts of small-scale renewable projects. But again, one of the goals of our sequencing here is that each of these workshops can actually inform the following workshops as well. So the topics discussed will build on each other as we go through this process. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you, John.
Great. And then I'll go ahead and take Kathy off mute. Kathy, you should now be able to ask your question.
Yeah. Okay. My name's Kathy Moyd. I've been following a lot of climate legislation and agency activities for the League of Women Voters of Oregon. And occasionally, if it's appropriate, we like to be able to provide testimony, in some of the activities, but just also keep up on what's going on. And so I'm interested in what access the general public will have to some of the things. Will the website that you're talking about be available to the public? Will the workshop materials be available, in the month ahead of time so we can have a chance to look at them and see if we want to provide comments?
That's a great question. Thanks for bringing that up. So yes, the Small Scale Renewable Energy Study website is a public-facing website. The materials for the workshops will be available on the website. We'll endeavour to have them up as expediently as possible, and at least within 2 weeks of the workshop itself. So and then messages will go out through our listserv to the public, and the workshops themselves will be public meetings, and there will be an opportunity for public comment at each of those.
And the availability of your written comments also?
And the availability for written comments as well, yes.
And the listserv will be available for public to subscribe to?
Yes, it will.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, there's a. I think we can maybe chat the web page, and then send a note. We can send a notification to folks on this meeting.
Push is better than pull.
Yes.
Thank you so much for your service, Kathy. And yeah, it's just an imperative that everything we do as a state agency be open and accessible to the public. So thanks for the reminder. We'll keep on it. All right. Does anyone else have any questions? About the kind of work plan?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and comment. Diane Henkel's here. I just wanted to I appreciated the comment about putting materials on the site and such, and like when we do that, because there's a lot to consider in this work group, and also even in filling out the survey and the questionnaire, that will be something where I appreciate the time that we'll have to do that, but also it's all it's all cross-informative, shall we say. So I thank Craig for bringing that up, but I appreciate this. And I wanted to ask, so if you could tell us is it the sort of thing where we would send you, or maybe you would just instruct us later when but soon, I guess, where we would send you, John, materials, or we would ask you if these materials were going to be there, and then you're the one who would be the conduit to the poster, or, you know, what mechanism you're going to use that. It would be good to know that, you know, at the earliest possible time, I think.
That's a great point, Diane. So the work group charter that we'll be sending out on December 13th will have more information about the process and methods by which you can communicate with our team. I'll say now, certainly I'm the project lead, so I'll be available to members of the work group as you see fit. One of the elements of the questionnaire that will include a question for work group members about potential materials that we could reference as we're doing our research. So and that so you'll have an immediate avenue there to include materials which will come directly to us. Did that answer your question?
Great. Thank you. All right, anything else? Work plan, process? Right, got nothing in the chat. Nobody else speaking up. Thanks, John.
Okay, excellent. So now I'm just going to take a few minutes here to give a quick or brief sort of level set on where we are or what the status of small scale and community-based energy projects is in Oregon at the moment, and then to do a little bit of a deeper dive into each of the topics of research and point out some examples of potential research areas, research objectives, or potential research methods. I'll just point out that what when I get to those, the discussion of the research topics, I'm certainly not being prescriptive about what the work group will need to consider. Again, we want those topics to be generated by the work group. But just the goal here is to just give a sort of a flavor of what the group might be studying and a primer of what we'll be asking in the questionnaire that we'll be sending out to the group. So again, just quickly going back to our definition. The small-scale and community-based renewable energy projects that we're talking about are projects with a generating capacity of 20 megawatts or less, using resources that are Oregon RPS eligible, and located in Oregon. At the moment, in Oregon, between 1990 and 2019, approximately 7.6 gigawatts of nameplate capacity has been added to the grid, and of that capacity, approximately 10% were projects that were under that 20 megawatt threshold. And if we look at that over time, between 1990 and 2019, we can see that between 1990 and 2005, because of the bulk of that, those capacity additions were projects, large projects over 20 megawatts in size. But from 2006 onwards, we started to see an increase in Oregon in projects under the 20 megawatt threshold. And I'll just point out that this capacity here, it does include non-renewables, but the additions in this under 20 megawatt category are almost exclusively renewable based resources. And we can see that over the last 15 years, the proportion of new additions that were made up of in this under 20 megawatt threshold has increased, and over the last 5 years, approximately 37% of the capacity increases were from projects under 20 megawatts in size. And so now if we look at that segment in a little bit more detail and see what we can look at that and break down those size categories a little bit more and look at the different resources that are involved. And so this chart takes this the slice of under 20 megawatt projects and breaks it further out into 1 megawatt or less, 1 to 5 megawatts, 5 to 10 megawatts, and 10 to 20 megawatts, and then breaks it out by resource. So biogas in the dark green, the light green is biomass, geothermal is orange, hydropower, included natural gas here as well, just to show that it's a relatively small slice of these projects. Solar in yellow, and then wind in the grey. And we can see that there are projects across these categories, with the 5 to 10 megawatt category having the largest resource capacity additions, with solar being the largest in that category, followed by wind. And so Diane, I think I just saw your question of what the small natural gas projects may be, and those are typically small cogeneration plants. And so if we look at the distribution geographically of small-scale renewable energy projects in Oregon, we can see that they are dispersed widely across the state. Again, the light blue dots here are representing projects of 1 megawatt or less. The darker blue are representing projects between 1 and 5 megawatts. The orange between 5 and 10 megawatts, and the purple between 10 and 20 megawatts. So if we look at the count, there are a number of projects within each of these categories, and they're again widely dispersed around the state, around communities, but also clearly following in a sense transmission. Now, one thing that's important to note, these are on this map are in front of the meter utility projects. If we put the behind the meter commercial and residential projects here, it would crowd the map out a little too much. But those, but behind the meter projects are included in these charts here, both the commercial and residential side. So I'll just pause there to see if anybody has any questions about that very high level summary of the status of small-scale renewable projects in Oregon.
John, I have a question, and I'm not sure how to raise my hand here on this WebEx, but is there a document that describes each of these projects somewhere? A little, locator and descriptor of each of these projects. That would be useful to see.
Yeah. So on the Odo website, we do have a map that shows these projects, and you can scroll over those and see some information about each of the projects. And you can certainly we'll include a link to that map in the background materials that we send to the group. Yes, so these data come from the Odo's facilities database, so we obviously have location information and capacity information, but also some other information around so average annual production, etc. I'm not seeing any other questions. So
I have a question, actually.
Yeah, Angela.
Yeah, this is Angela. Something you said, can you clarify what you said about net metered projects? I thought I heard you say they were included, just not on the map, but an earlier slide said this was only about resources eligible for the RPS. So if you could clarify.
This map is just showing in front of the meter facilities. These charts of capacity additions do include commercial and residential behind the meter projects, and yes, acknowledging that those commercial and residential behind the meter projects may not electricity may not qualify for the RPS. We're still considering those as, if they're solar projects, solar is an RPS eligible resource. So we're certainly in this study considering behind the meter projects as well.
I see. Well, that's sort of different from what I had understood, because net meter projects are not eligible for the RPS. And so that makes sense. I was pretty confused about your data when you had showed such a large increase in small scale renewables after 2019, because if you take out net metered projects, there actually was a decrease in small scale renewable projects in Oregon. And so I'm pretty confused about why net metered projects are included. I don't think they should be. I think it was pretty clear in legislative intent that when we're talking about small scale, we're talking about RPS eligible resources. And I can direct you to Representative Helm's statement on the record about that. But yeah, our net metered projects should not be included in this study. That's OSEA's position.
That's a point well taken, and something that we can certainly consider, going back and looking at the legislative intent there. The potential for is some of the behind the meter projects that can maybe combined with storage could have certain resilience benefits to the community at large, and so that's something we were thinking should be considered as we're looking at the types of projects that we would be investigating under the study.
I mean, it's true that commercial and well, net meter projects will provide resiliency to communities, but I believe the intent of this study is not on net meter projects. So happy to follow up with you.
Thanks, Angela. We'll go ahead and talk internally about it too. Thank you so much for sharing that perspective.
So I'll move on now to just cover some of the subtopics that the group will be investigating. And again, I just want to point out that in these slides, I'm just pointing out some examples of potential topics or research objectives and potential research methods. Again, we want this to be driven by the work group itself. So the intent here is to just sort of give a primer on what we'll be asking about in the questionnaire as we help define the objectives and topics. And so the first is on potential opportunities and barriers for small-scale renewable energy projects. The potential opportunities that such projects could bring to the state include achieving decarbonisation of clean energy goals, improving access to clean energy resources among community members, local economic or environmental benefits, mitigation of land use conflicts, and local energy resilience. And some of the barriers noted in the statute to small-scale projects can include land use conflicts or transmission capacity issues, the ability to interconnect projects, or project implementation costs and financing. So the idea of the research objective around this topic is identification and studying opportunities and barriers to small-scale renewable energy projects, and where possible, identifying strategies to take advantage of those opportunities and to mitigate those barriers for projects that may have net benefits to the Oregonians. And some potential research methods that we propose using would be literature reviews, in-depth interviews with stakeholders, and regional and national experts.
And before you go on, we've had just a little bit of chat activity on the conversation on net metering, and I just want to acknowledge it. We see it. We see a couple of people, Representative Owens and Oriana Magnera, weighing in that the net metered projects were not intended to be included. We hear you. We'll talk about it. We'll have an answer back for everybody sometime soon.
Thanks for that input. The second workshop topic will be on access and ownership opportunities. So small-scale community-based renewable energy projects do have the potential to improve access and ownership opportunities for communities with limited access and infrastructure, and can also provide opportunities for diverse models of ownership by local governments, non-profit organizations or cooperatives of community members. So research objectives for around this topic area would be the work group to identify and study strategies and models, including investigating opportunities, benefits, barriers, costs, and risks that can increase access and promote diverse ownership of small-scale renewable energy projects. And the potential research methods include literature review and, again, in-depth interviews with stakeholders and regional and national experts. The third workshop we're proposing would look at potential economic and resilience benefits, as well as rate impacts of small-scale renewable energy projects. And so small-scale community-based renewable energy projects cannot present opportunities to create local economic benefits, direct impacts from projects could include increased direct employment in construction or operations of renewable energy projects, local tax revenues to cities and counties, or reduced household or business energy expenses. Indirect impacts could, the projects such as this could generate increased local spending or increased employment in related industries, so manufacturing, for example, and then induced impacts being so the sort of tertiary impacts, increased household or business income, which can help generate more economic activity in communities and increase local employment in other industries, and for example, retail or service industries. And so the research objective around this topic would be for us to identify and quantify potential economic benefits of small-scale renewable energy projects, using methods such as literature review, in-depth interviews with stakeholders, regional and national experts, as well as conducting economic impacts analysis. That's I think we would endeavour, on the economic impacts analysis to conduct as rigorous an analysis as we can, obviously, but depending on tools and resources available, we may will depend on how deep we can go on that impacts analysis. The potential resilience benefits is another topic of consideration of the work group. Resilience, community energy resilience can include activities like preparation for energy service disruptions, mitigation of risks from system hazards, being able to respond to disruptions in energy services quickly, and then recover as quickly as possible and restore energy services. And small-scale community-based renewable energy projects can play a role across those activities and have the potential to, for example, minimize impacts, acute disruptions to the energy system, or harden critical infrastructure, emergency service, for example, emergency services, and support emergency response, as well as provide emergency energy services to communities. The research
John, excuse me, John. I was just wondering, I had my hand up, and that's okay. When you're ready, could we go back a few slides? I have a question that I had to look something up before I asked it. And it would be the slide that has the access. It's got a bullet point of access. Let's see. Yeah. Okay. Maybe my question can just, or maybe my point will just wait as we see how things develop here a little bit. So it can. I appreciate that. Thanks so much.
Sure. So with regards to the potential resilience benefits of projects, the research objective here for this study could be to identify these resilience benefits categories and potentially identify methods for quantification of those benefits. Potential research methods will include, again, literature review, consultation with stakeholders and experts, and then investigating and evaluating different value of resilience methodologies that have that are available and have become a focus of some research attention over the last few years. And then lastly, certainly not leastly, potential rate impacts. So small-scale community-based renewable energy projects may have the potential for increasing or decreasing retail electricity rates. So one of the objectives of the study will be to assess those impacts and of projects at different scales of deployment, and we can investigate those objectives through, again, literature review, expert and stakeholder consultation, and then looking at different potential scenarios and conducting rate impact measure tests on those scenarios. But as I'll pause there for any questions or comments, I guess final questions or comments about the study, and with 10 minutes left, I would like to open the floor for any final discussion among the group.
Great. And one thing I'll note is that we're seeing continued chatter about the net metering question, and we're really glad we're hearing that. Good conversation. I'm not sure if we want to talk about it more, or just know that we're going to continue to talk to you all and talk to each other and figure out what the legislative intent was, and can follow up. So we're hearing that, but maybe start with, do we want to talk about that more, or can we just all accept that we're going to keep working on it? I think I'm kind of leaning toward, with the time we have left, like, just accept that we'll have a chat about it internally, kind of heard what we heard, and then let you all know, or ask for more feedback too. But not right now, because we only have a few minutes left. I'm seeing a lot of thumbs up. Thank you. That feels good. Great. Okay. So do we have questions on other topics? Diane, I think your hand is still up from that when I missed your hand earlier. Anybody else have anything?
Right.
I don't see anything.
And perhaps we could also open the floor to members of the public if there are any comments from any attendees who are not on the web group.
Great. So we do have a few folks, including Jessica, who's been weighing in the chat quite a bit, who's kind of co-joining the work group. She's like the vice member for PAC, I suppose. I'm not sure how to refer to that. But anyway, if anybody here would like, that's an attendee, would like to say something, just go ahead and raise your hand and I'll take you off mute. And again, to raise your hand, you can either click on the little smiley face at the bottom. That's probably the easiest way, or you can find your name, and there's a little right next to your name on the attendee list. You'll see a little hand raise. Okay. I don't see any other hands up from attendees or from panelists today, or work group members.
Thanks, Christy. So I'll just remind folks of the next our next steps, which will be we'll be sending out a document package on December 13th, which will include again the workgroup charter, which will have more information or summarize the information discussed in this meeting about the framework and plan for the study, and then the research topic questionnaire and a survey for workgroup members to indicate their preferences for which workshop planning committee they would like to be on. And unless we have any other questions or comments from members, we can give you some time back in your day.
I don't see anything.
Well, again, thank you very much for joining us today, and again, thank you very much for your willingness to participate and in the work group. We really appreciate your service. Yeah, I'm not sure. Do you have any final comments, Christy?
No. Thanks everyone for joining us and taking the time. Look forward to this work in the months ahead.
Thank you very much.
And I did see a comment from Kathy about Zoom as well. So thank you. Got that noted too. And then also I'll throw into the people are leaving so fast, but we did post the slides per Kathy's request, and I'll throw a link into the chat.
Great, thanks.
And that's available on our website too.
Nice job, John, Christy. Well done.
Thanks, Alan.
I'm gonna jump off. Bye.